You're listening to ShipFam. Today is a Luke update where he talks about the recent progressive web apps he's been building, as well as LukeHog, his new ultra-lightweight analytics service. As always, review and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter at KCCRogers and at Luke_Paghetti.
I've been shipping a bunch of stuff recently. I think I've shipped 2 small Flutter PWAs in the last couple days, and I'm about to ship my first super small SaaS. It's not even a product because it's all free right now, but we'll call it like a technical preview of a SaaS product. I think that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And that I'm going to be shipping by the time this podcast is out. It'll be available, and that's lukehog.com. And I want to talk about all of those things.
Editor's note from Casey here because I realized we didn't explain it. PWA stands for Progressive Web App, which is a website that has a whole host of mobile integrations designed to make it feel as much as possible like a mobile app without requiring an upfront download from the stores.
Sweet. Let's start with the PWAs, because that's somewhere where it's like, I hate being under the thumb of Google and Apple. It's so painful. But web people are so gross. And I've never really wanted to get into web, even as a user.
I don't know what your hate is with web and React. That's something I'll never understand.
I've got personal issues I got to work out.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, but anyway, I don't know.
Is the Webpack in the room with us right now, Casey?
Exactly. But I mean, to be more specific, every time I see a PWA as a user, I'm just kind of confused. It just feels weird.
It is kind of odd. Yeah, so PWAs, like, I'm not like some PWA maximist at all, right?
Yeah.
So that's not my thing. But what I will say is that Flutter Web has gotten good enough, and I don't know when this happened, but it seems to have gotten good enough that I can build a prototype and ship it just with like GitHub Actions and GitHub Pages to the point where people can actually go in and use it and get an idea of what's going on and give feedback. And that's like crazy powerful because, I mean, it takes my deploy time down to, I'm building stuff in like a single day now.
That's
whereas
amazing.
before, you know that it takes way longer than that.
Yeah, mobile store ship velocity is absolutely awful. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, now I'm not going to sit here and tell you that a PWA is a good idea for a business, right? Because if you're building an app like the App Store, you just have such low friction to payment in the App Store that if you want to get paid, like, I would not use a PWA for that at all. But if you want to like make an MVP and just send it off to stakeholders or just like post it on Twitter so that people can play around with it, then it's pretty awesome.
I wonder if there's like a good level up strategy there where you just spam PWAs on Twitter and see what sticks, and then you take the like top 2 and build mobile apps out of them with monetization and everything.
Yeah, so I'm not like being super galaxy brain about it, but what I'm basically doing is I realized I hadn't really shipped anything new in a long time. And so I decided that I would just, if I came up with an idea, I would just sit down and build it in Flutter Web and ship it as a PWA and just post it on Twitter and then attach analytics to these projects and just see what happens. And if anything like resonated with people, then I would dive a little deeper on it.
Yeah, no, I love the idea. I think it's a great approach, especially because I personally, too, I think we've been in similar spots right now. Just like even a bit of friction to developing and launching just kind of wrecks my motivation right now.
Yeah. And also, I noticed that a lot of the guys who are successful as indie hackers are often delivering on web. And one of the things I noticed that they do is they build a bunch of small things and they just send it out to the world on web. And it seemed like the strategy that was hard for me to really understand. I think it was hard for me to understand because I was so used to the overhead of dealing with mobile apps in the app stores.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really painful to ship on mobile. That really bugs me about it. I might try to steal your flow here. It sounds pretty fun. I've got some ideas bouncing in my head. But before we go too deep in all that, first, let's just hear what you've built. I know you've launched 2 PWAs. What was that one? It was the, like, the struggle switch?
Yeah, okay, so there's 2 of them. There's struggleswitch.com and there's unfuck.app, okay?
Okay, sweet.
And so these are 2, like, we'll call them, like, mental health awareness quarter. Because it's not mental health awareness week. We'll do mental health awareness quarter because I know myself and a lot of the people are just kind of struggling a little bit with the market right now.
Yeah, and it's a software trend right now too. Like there's some apps that are sprouting up that are super self-care focused, especially in the Flutter space, interestingly.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that, but...
Yeah, Headspace, Finch Care, a couple others.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right, Finch. I know you were talking to them recently for a job interview. But anyway, so struggleswitch.com is a really simple idea. It's from a form of therapy. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but if you go to struggleswitch.com and you go look at the bottom, there's a button that says watch this video, and you click on it, it takes you to a YouTube video that was essentially the inspiration for the idea. And the idea is that if you've got anxiety or you're worrying or something, it's like there's this switch at the back of your brain that just causes you to struggle with it and kind of spiral out of control.
Yep.
And so if you can figure out how to just like turn that switch off, then you can like observe these thoughts and these feelings and just kind of let them pass by. Another version of this is the wave theory, which is thoughts are like waves and waves flow through you. You are not the wave, you are the ocean. The waves just flow through the ocean. So it's like a version of that, just framed a little bit differently.
Yeah, and I've also seen like you take an arbitrary object and you are supposed to go through a thought exercise where you project your anxiety into the object and then you throw away or burn or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's all kinds of versions of this. But the one that I was playing around with that was Struggle Switch. And so that app is really simple. I mean, it's like basically the simplest app you can imagine. You open it up, it gives you a little piece of text that says, I'm going to pull it up real quick here, Struggle Switch. Gives you a little piece of text that says, intrusive thoughts, commit to not engaging by turning off your struggle switch. And then it's got this huge Cupertino switch in the middle, and it just has like a sad face emoji. No, it's actually Cupertino switch because they look better.
No, I know. I was making fun of you just because I've seen you talking mad shit.
I was just kind of digging into it
on Twitter.
So anyway, all you do is you click that, the sad face turns into like a slightly smiling face, and that's pretty much the whole app.
Sweet.
And then if you want to reset it, you either got to refresh it or there's like a little button in the upper left.
Which, by the way, I loved because my immediate intuition after I turned the struggle switch off was like, oh man, I want to go back to struggling. Can I switch it back on? I noticed you didn't allow that. And it's kind of a clever metaphor that you've put it off in a separate side channel interaction of resetting and refreshing. Just because, of course, if the whole point of the app is metaphor, it's kind of bad to have the metaphor of willfully turning your struggle back on.
Struggle switch back on, and that was very, very intentional. I did spend not a lot of time, but some time like thinking about that, and I was actually surprised at how many people were like, "Dude, I need to turn this back on." And I was like, I should just make you like an OCD switch where it's like you can turn it on and off as many times as you want, and it shows like a counter or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh God! Oh no!
And every time it shows up in a multiple of 3, it turns like bright green or something. Like just something to just like really fuck people with OCD over. I feel so bad for anyone with OCD right now who's listening to me.
I really want to see you build the like Switch cinematic universe or something where there's just like a lock-in switch and a bunch of other switches, and then you can even let users. I
actually like the lock-in switch idea. Do you want to pitch that to people who are listening? Because I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah. So lock-in switch it's like struggle switch where you load the site and there's this big giant switch in the middle, starts in the off state, and it says tap this to lock in. And then when you want to lock out, there's like a reset and all that thing. And the whole idea,
like focus. It's like a metaphor for focus mode, right?
Yeah. Just because I love this space in general of app UI that in quotes doesn't do anything, but emotionally resonates.
But it's but it's metaphorical and resonant.
Yeah. And the one I want is the lock-in switch. Just given personally, that's what I'm struggling with right now. Is like being able to lock in and just get shit done.
Yeah, and it's funny. I bet there's some version of this where you make a bunch of these, put them in an iOS app, and then you turn them into like home screen widgets, for example.
Yeah. That'd be pretty cool.
Or like the fidget spinner app, where you can just like add all kinds of crazy like fidget things to your home screen. So if somebody hasn't done that, there's honestly probably a space for something like that.
How'd the analytics do, by the way? So you've got your homebrew analytics, which we're going to talk about in more detail later. But just to start, did you get many users on Struggle Switch?
Yeah, I can talk about that real quick. So as expected, it was pretty hot for a couple days, and then it petered out to basically next to nothing. So, but that's totally fine. So I can't give you the day one stats because I actually didn't have analytics set up. But day 2 stats, I had 358 unique users. And then it went down to 54, 17, 15, 8, and 4. So it's basically just like tapered off to next to nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it captured the minds of people for at least a little bit there. And for analytics, I just went very simple. I have unique sessions, unique users, open the app. If they tap the not struggling button, if they start over. And then the other one that was really cool was I have one for viewing the repository. So there's a little link in there that lets people view the repository, because all these projects are source available. And yeah, so it's just cool to be able to see that people were accessing it. And also, another thing about this app is it wasn't necessarily meant to be like an app that people use forever. Like, if people find this useful, then I encourage them to use it. But it was mostly just to see if I could essentially get more people familiar with the idea of the struggle switch, like the mental tool. And so to find out that 500 plus people were exposed to it through the actual website was pretty cool. And then however many more impressions on Twitter, probably a couple thousand, I would guess. So that was worth my time, I think.
Nice. Yeah. No, I like the struggle switch. It's new to me. At least this variant of it. Of course, I've seen other variants.
Yeah. So then that led us to the next app, which is UNFCK, unfuck without the second U, unfuck.app. Yeah. And I'm going to open that one up. So the way that started is there's this whole movement on YouTube, and I'm sure other platforms as well, where people create content that's about quote unquote unfucking your life. And it's just like the basic stuff. It's like sleep enough, drink enough water, eat the right amount of healthy food, exercise or do some form of manual labor, connect with a friend or loved one.
Yep. Wait.
Keep a positive mindset.
I've been hitting the self-care thing, like following the self-care trend through the lens of Finch care, which is very female targeted. And I kept wondering, like, what does male targeted Finch care
look like? What's like the bro-coded version of this?
Yeah, and it sounds like it's unfuck. Like, that sounds like the most bro-coded way to do
something
self-care.
Like, what this reminds me of? I want like an unfuck app, but this is gonna sound horrible, but it's the bad advice wolf version of the unfuck app.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, drink enough water, or like drink enough blood of your neighbors or something like that. Like, I don't know what it is, but there's like a button that you can like switch it between like bad advice wolf text and like regular text or something.
Yeah,
just to,
stay hydrated. Drink 5 to 6 beers.
Yeah, right. Something so ridiculous. But yeah, so no, I bet unfuck could totally be like a bro-coded version of Finch, which is pretty funny.
But anyway, your unfuck app, I played around with it. You've got a series of switches that you have to switch on each day to mark off the tasks you've completed. And you get like a day streak that's color-coded by what percent of your targets you hit. So it's like Kirkland brand habit tracker.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't know what Kirkland brand is. What is that?
Kirkland, that's Costco's like store generic brand. Oh. Yeah, Kirkland.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So it's Kirkland brand habit kit.
Yeah. I don't think that's a compliment, but I'm fine with it because it totally fits.
Yep.
It's literally like if somebody spent 5 hours on a project and created a habit tracker, this would be it. So totally. But yeah, it's got the basic, like you said, it's got the day streak at the top. It's got some basic goals pre-populated. You can go in and like turn off certain goals if you don't like them. We have a bunch of other ones that are in there that you can turn on, and then there's like 5 custom slots, and then you can reorder them.
Okay, this is gonna be a dumb aside, but I've noticed this in a couple of your apps and a few other apps, and it's a UX interaction I've never seen a very clean version of. Yeah. And that's like a 2-tier checklist or a 2-tier check box where is this checkbox even in the priority list? And then there's, once it's in the list, has it been achieved or not?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, typically that would be done in like 2 separate lists, I would think. You'd have like a prioritization list, and then you'd have like the actual completion list.
Yeah. I'm getting on such a rabbit hole here, but I'm imagining a galaxy brain. It's like a toggle track that starts vertical, and then once you tick it vertically, then you have to tick it again horizontally to fully complete it.
Oh my god, that's insane. Just get out of here.
I know. I'm getting way too galaxy-brained.
This is going in our fidget spinner app. What you just created is perfect for the fidget spinner app.
Yep. Maybe it has like customizable track directions and steps and everything.
Yeah, that's insane. Actually, for the fidget spinner app, you could have a switch that every time you click it, it spins a random number of degrees.
I like it.
That's
cool.
perfect.
So we've got unfuck.app. When did you launch that?
That was just yesterday, actually. Yeah,
nice.
No, I built it Sunday afternoon, and then I just did like an hour of cleanup and then launched it yesterday morning.
Sweet. How's it doing?
That one got less of a spike than the Struggle Switch app, but it seems to be holding on a little bit longer. So that one did 227 in the first day, and it's done 130 today. And so we'll just kind of see what happens. We'll give it a couple days to peter out.
Yeah. The thing I would love to see in this new formula you spun up is some sort of share loop, especially a share loop that's generic enough that you could copy it across all your different experiments. Because that's the real thing, I think, is to figure out if you strike an idea that has positive K-factor and then just make the friction to achieving that positive K-factor as low as possible.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that are just missing from these if they were to be given like their best chance to succeed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know you're just kind of like finding your footing and playing around right now. I'm just trying to force you into
it's a good thought though, because it's like if you were doing something like this, what things can you do to give it the best chance to succeed?
Yeah, and the other part is I just want to steal from your experience, because that's another thing I want to learn is like, how do you create a banger share loop? I really want to learn that.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're releasing an app I'm releasing an app every 48 hours at this point, right?
That's wild, yeah.
If you're building stuff that fast, then you have so many shots at, iterating on that basically the launch experience, right? The onboarding launch performance.
Which is Nikita Beer's formula. His whole shtick was just iterate on your launch formula and then launch in isolated communities. That's the part you're missing that he has, which of course I'm not telling you to go and do because...
it's
like
just too much work for what I'm doing.
Yeah, but that is the interesting part, is he discovered launching at schools where they're like the perfect little isolated petri dishes. The problem with launching with your Twitter audience is you're just reusing the same petri dish over and over, and there's just like a bunch of nasty-ass E. coli built up or something.
Yeah. Oh, there is one thing I want to call out here. I don't remember the guy's name, but if he's listening to this, he's going to know who it is. So when I did Unfuck, the day before I posted, essentially, I need to unfuck my life. Here are the things I'm going to do. Like, what should I add to this list and what needs to be changed, right? And that got a ton of engagement. Nice. I was actually surprised at how much engagement that got. And then in the comments, some guy was like, hey, do you know of any app I can use to track this? And I was like, well, I was thinking of making one, but I can make it for both of us, right? So we actually sat down and kind of went back and forth a little bit and came up with a spec.
That's awesome.
And so that was kind of fun because I felt like I was building it for two people, not just for myself.
Yeah.
And that made it a lot more engaging to build. And even if the guy uses it like once or twice and never uses it again, I still built it like for more than just me. So that was pretty cool.
I wonder if there's a way to operationalize that, because I'm loving that idea. It's like an early stage design accountability buddy.
Yeah, right. That's really funny. Would you say accountability buddy?
You never heard of accountability buddies?
No, I think that's hilarious. I've never heard it like
South
said
Park.
like that.
They were like mocking one of those like conversion therapy camps. And they send Butters there or something, and Butters is assigned an accountability buddy that's supposed to help him not have gay thoughts or something.
So horrible and so funny.
Typical South Park.
Oh my god. Jeez. I should tell you sometime about all the crazy signs I saw when I was riding my motorcycle through Panhandle, Florida, but maybe that's not fit for this podcast. But it goes down
we'll
that
spare
same
the children.
line. We'll spare the children. So the next thing that happened was after I released Unfuck, some random guy responded and he was like, oh, so this was bait, right? And he was referring to the fact that I made the post first and then launched the app
he
second.
just assumed you were bad faith.
Right. But I was like, even if that's true, where's the bad faith? I'm not charging for anything. Like, what? Like, I literally just made a free thing for people. Like, how do you get bad faith out of that? Yeah. I'm not even like collecting emails. There's like no email collection. There's like nothing in here. So it's like the whole idea, like, so that guy, like, just go fuck yourself. Like, it's such a terrible attitude to have. I'm struggling with my attitude right now, and I can tell you that that's a terrible attitude to have. Yeah. So
I mean, I get it too. It's sort of like we've talked about in one of our previous episodes. Going on Reddit, you just get eviscerated when you talk about your product. And that's because most people on Reddit
but it's not Reddit. It's my personal Twitter. It's like,
I know.
What's more personal than, like, it's like posting on like your Facebook feed or something. You know what I mean? It's like just one step below that.
Yeah.
In terms of like how personal it is. But anyway, that's my take.
So to circle back around, we've got Unfuck and we've got Struggle Switch. Do you have any others like in the backlog ready to go?
Nothing that I'm going to talk about now, but what I will say is that when I went to go do Struggle Switch, I wanted some basic analytics on it. And remember I said that I didn't have analytics in the first day? Well, the reason I didn't have analytics in the first day is because I went to go create a post-hog project, and a couple things happened. First of all, the post-hog client doesn't work on Flutter WASM builds, and I had made a decision that all of these were going to be done in Flutter WASM.
Which, by the way, the first page load times are still pretty bad, I've noticed, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah, they're not great. And I haven't done like a side-by-side comparison on performance, but my whole thing right now is with Flutter WASM, it loads fast enough for most cases, let's say, unless you're like in the boonies on 3G or something like that.
Yeah, wait, by the way, before I forget, do you know if they've merged GC into WASM yet? Maybe that's the problem, is that WASM still has to package its own garbage collector.
I think Flutter WASM was unblocked by WASM GC, but don't quote me on that. That's my recollection, though.
Yeah, neither of us are really as up to date on this as we should be in order to talk about it. My impression was...
I'm 80% sure that that's true, but that 20% is giving me the asterisk.
My probably misinformed understanding was that in order to not be blocked, they were shipping the Flutter engine with a like high-level garbage collector. And they were waiting to remove the high-level garbage collector on a low-level garbage collector getting packaged with browsers.
Got it.
Editor's note from Casey here. It does look like WASM now ships with its own garbage collector, and Flutter WASM is using that garbage collector.
So, I was adding analytics to Struggle Switch, and basically PostHog wasn't working with the WASM builds, and PostHog's documentation wasn't really clear how to just send raw events using just like a REST API, which was really weird to me because it looked in the docs like it was really straightforward. I was sending stuff, I was getting 200s back, and nothing was showing up in my PostHog dashboard. So I don't know why it wasn't working, but then I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm going to just take Pocketbase. I'm going to spin up a Pocketbase server. I'm going to create an analytics collection, and I'm just going to start dumping events into it just using regular like REST post calls. And then I'm going to use a view to essentially create these tables that have events bucketed by day, right?
Yep.
And so I did that on both of them, and it's like surprisingly useful when all you're doing is picking, let's say like 10 event names, sending them in, and then just looking at them bucketed by day. You get like a surprisingly good amount of information when you're doing these like fast projects, right?
Yep. It's the feature DAOs graph we've talked about.
Yeah, it's a lot like feature DAOs.
Event DAOs.
Yeah, but I mean, you could, and we'll get to this, but like in the documentation I'm going to reference in a little bit, like we actually say, use them like feature DAOs, kind of, basically.
Nice.
But in any case, so I shipped this PostHog server. I use it for these 2 apps, and I was like, okay, this is actually pretty awesome. And so then I started putting together a little project that I'm calling. It's got the most ridiculous name. Okay. It's an analytics service called LukeHog.
Nice. Yep.
And LukeHog is essentially that same idea. It's an analytics server where you can send events from any Flutter platform, any other language. You can use it for small projects, like if you have a CLI tool that you put out, or you just want to put something on a server or like a service. It doesn't really matter what you want to do with it. It's just anything that you want to record some basic events and get them bucketed by day. That's what LukeHog does today. There's other stuff that I want to do with it, but that's what the technical preview is.
Nice.
And there's a couple things that is really cool about it beyond that. The first one is that to create a new project, all you do is you visit lukehog.com, and it immediately generates a admin key and an app ID for you. You don't have to like put it in email. You don't have to do anything. Literally, you just show up and it automatically assigns you one, and it gives you a code snippet that you can copy paste into your Flutter or Dart project, and then you've got analytics set up and working.
Nice.
And it's just really easy to get in and create new ones and get them set up. And then as you send events in, it buckets them by day. The other thing that it does that's really kind of unique is that because the admin panel is so basic, I knew that myself and other people were going to want to be able to run like their own custom analytics charts and stuff on it. And so there's a button in the upper right. You click on it, and it downloads all of your events in a SQLite database. So it's just one click to get your archive, and there's no like wait time to export. It's not like this 24-hour like export batching system that like a lot of these other analytics providers have. You literally just click a button, and then your SQLite database is downloaded directly to your computer, and then you can open it and look through it and run queries on it.
Yep. Nice. I love it. It feels like something that could just gain a lot of steam on its own.
Yeah, and so I'm super curious in this because I've got some other like Flutter-based tooling like that I want to release. And of course, LukeHog could do other things. It could do feature flags. It could do feedback. It could do 5-star forms. It could do NPS. There's like all kinds of things you could do with it, or like that I could add to it as features. But it's starting out as just a very simple analytics server.
Yep. Yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes. Here's the important question, are you using LukeHog for user analytics on LukeHog?
Yes. So
nice.
The answer is, as soon as I get off this call, that's like the next thing on my to-do list. Because through the magic of the space-time continuum and releasing podcasts, I will actually be releasing it in like an hour. But for people who listen to the podcast, it will already be out by then. But yeah, by the time people actually hear this podcast, LukeHog is going to be dog fooding it. Struggle Switch is going to be using it, and Unfuck is going to be using it, and whatever my third thing is going to be using it as well.
Nice. Yeah,
I'm also probably going to put it on some of my other like production mobile apps, just to start hammering the server to see what the load characteristics are.
Do you want me to slap it in Dribble? That'd probably be a pretty good load test.
I think you can. If it gets really wild, I'll just make the server bigger, and if the server gets expensive, then I'll just hit you up for an enterprise contract.
Nice, sweet. All right, I'll tell you right before I ship it, but that should be out like sometime this week.
That's hilarious. But yeah, no. So those are the 3 things I've been working on: struggleswitch.com, unfuck.app, and then the one that's probably most applicable to people watching this is lukehog.com, which is like dead simple analytics for pretty much any project.
Yeah. I mean, microsas feels like the easiest way to make it in indie. I know you're not really even approaching it from that angle. You're just approaching it from, what do I want to build right now, today? But I think this has my smell-o-vision tells me this has a decent shot.
Yeah, so, I mean, if people use LukeHog and they're like, wow, this is awesome, but we also need X, you know, if it leads with, wow, this is awesome, I think that's a pretty good signal, right?
Yep.
But to start with, it's something that I needed, and I was like, man, it would be awesome if I could just... Do you remember, like, TinyPic? Do you ever remember that service?
No.
Or, like, Imager is one that people know more, where you used to be able to just anonymously post a picture and then get, like, this shareable link where you could send it to anybody. Another good example is, like, Pastebin. So Pastebin, you could, like, post any text into it without making an account, and you could just share it with anybody.
Yeah.
That's, like... LukeHog is like that for analytics, which is like kind of crazy, but that's what it is.
Yep. Yeah, I'm wondering too what else you could apply that to. I mean, it sounds kind of wild, but what about that but databases?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I think the thing is that like if one were to, you know, monetize it, like it's crazy that I'm not asking for an email, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea that I'm not asking for any kind of email or identifiable information is like just so insane. But for the purposes of what LukeHog is supposed to do, which is like, hey, Flutter community, you know, here's a really simple way to set up analytics. It's very basic, but we have this awesome escape hatch, which is you can get all your data in a SQLite database instantly. Then I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah. And to be honest, I don't know. I'm pretty glass half empty on email as like a lead now. Just because it's so much logistics to work around getting spam marked or getting promotion marked, and even just figuring out how to do a good email campaign is really painful and logistics heavy now. And I think the audience is just kind of email fatigued too.
That's possible. And so like for me, like my hope here is that I can just share these projects with my Twitter followings and communicate with them there. So like on all these projects at the bottom, it's got that typical like made with love by Luke Pighetti, and if you click on it, it takes you to my Twitter, and I've got DMs turned on and all that stuff.
I think if it goes anywhere, what you would want to do is not email leads, but Discord. That's the new way to do it, as long as it's not like a female demographic you're targeting, because Discord's for weirdo losers, so it chases away all the women. You want to just put people into Discord. It's a much, much stronger lead channel.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
That's what I've seen,
bro coded.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. I think there is like 1 or 2 female versions of Discord, but I don't know if any of them have really seen success like Discord has for the male demographic.
Yeah. One thing I will say about these small projects is I think that all of these projects have this kind of, we'll call it like minimum activation energy required to actually kind of take off. Yeah. And I think that when you're doing these small, like 1-day projects, like you're getting these proof of concepts out, but they don't have like all the things that they would need to actually succeed. So I'm not looking for, you know, is this successful? Does it take off? I'm just looking for just kind of like vibes from people. If they're like, wow, this is awesome, or if people forget about it really quickly, or, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking for traction. I think you could see traction where it's not even necessarily that it like goes viral, but that it shows quick growth and reasonable retention.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
I think you could see that even with how bare bones these things are, as if one of them is really resonating. I think you'll see the user numbers show that.
Yeah, and because I'm using LukeHog.com, here's my plug, I'll be able to tell.
Sweet. All right.
I can't think of anything else. Was there anything else you want to talk about?
I've got a lot of stuff I'm bouncing around in my head, but I don't want to overload everybody with here's a Luke update, then here's a Casey update. So let's make that a part 2-er.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. Talk to you later.
All right, thanks.